92% accuracy against a 1900. Keep watching until the end because this is the stuff that will get you to 2000. So you might be wondering, how did the game start? So of course, like any other game, we have normal moves. Against d4, I just play knight f6, very flexible move. You are not committing a pawn in the center and you are still deciding. And we have c4. I play c5, striking in the center, but with the c pawn. And the benefit to striking in the center with the c pawn is that if they take, you have moves like queen a5 check, trying to win back your pawn. You also have e6, trying to win back your pawn this way. And if they don't do anything, let's say they play knight f3, you just take the d pawn and you have traded your c pawn for the d pawn. And if they push, which is what happened in the game, I played b5 here, which is called the Benko Gambit. The entire point of this opening is you move the c pawn away from the center. By doing so, you also gain extra development and 2 open files over here, which you can place your rook on these open files. So they took, I play a6. You might be asking, okay, now is the time to recapture, of course, with the bishop. But no, I actually play g6 here. This pawn is not going anywhere. Meanwhile, I'm just going to finish my development, play d6, and then I can decide to take this pawn. Knight to c3 here, very good move, trying to prepare e4. Bishop g7, e4, and d6. So d6, of course, to prevent e5 here. Because if I don't play d6, if I just castle, they will play e5, and I can't unfortunately take the pawn on d5. I will probably have to move here, for example, and I don't really like to do that, so d6 is what I played. And just simply castled. Notice how I still haven't taken my pawn because I stay patient and I finish my development, and now I take the pawn back because they have already wasted the tempo moving this bishop. They of course castled, they didn't take my bishop. And as you guys can see, and one of the moves in this opening is to play queen a5, bringing it to the queen side and develop your knight and bring both of the rooks to the open files. So you have your light squared bishop controlling this diagonal. You have your queen on the queen side, adding a bunch of pressure. You have your dark squared bishop, which just cuts through this diagonal very nicely. Develop your knight, and then you also have 2 heavy pieces, which just blast down this 2 open files. And what happened in the game was bishop d2 lining up with my queen, taking advantage of my queen's position, but the knight really doesn't have any useful discoveries. I mean, maybe knight b5 is a move here, because I cannot take the knight, but other than that, it's not as scary as you might think. And I exchanged the light squared bishops, they took back, and I simply finish my development. Now my rooks are connected, and my next move is going to be rook b8, adding pressure on top of this b2 pawn. And we have a3, which is not a good move here, which just allows me to get my rook onto the open file, targeting this weak pawn. They have to do something about it, so they play rook a to b1, defending this pawn. But now I play knight to g4, opening up the bishop and rerouting the knight to e5, from which is a very nice square because it's very centralized. Knight g4, they kick my knight out, I play knight to e5, and look at how nicely protected this knight is on e5. Even though it's nicely protected, they actually have a nice sequence here to kick my knight out of the middle. So they took on e5, and I took back on e5 with the knight, which is inaccurate because it allows f4. And f4, I have to drop my knight back again. Meanwhile, they get this really nice central space and the potential to open up the center like this. And instead, what I should have played was taking with the bishop. After f4 happens, I have this check, and this is just much better for me. So of course I took back with the knight. Unfortunately, I didn't see that sequence. And now they play f4, I drop my knight back. And this is pretty much the only square where I can drop my knight back. Interestingly enough, they play knight back to d1, attacking my queen, but this just disconnects the rook. Also, it opens up my bishop now. Now it's directly looking at this pawn, and all I had to do was just move back the queen, and now I have 3 attackers on top of this pawn already. They played bishop c3, very good move here, challenging my bishop on this diagonal. And here I actually had a very nice tactic here. Rook takes a3. If they take on a3, the rook will be hanging. And this is why the move knight back to d1 is not a good move. Once your rooks are disconnected, they can't protect each other. So that just opens up to a bunch of tactics like rook takes a3. Interestingly enough, it doesn't even matter if they take on a g7 because I can just take back. The queen doesn't have any checks and I don't have to worry about anything. If they take, I just take the rook. They chose to exchange on g7, I just take back. And now they decide to take on a3, which is technically an okay move because at the end of the day it's a rook for rook. But I won a pawn and you might as well make the pawn passed so that it's going to be easier for them to promote, I guess. At least that's what I think. Took back the rook and we have knight to c3. But this is again not a good move because I have queen b3 here, attacking the knight and the pawn. If you move the knight, for example, here, I just take the pawn. There's very little they can do about it. They chose to save the knight and protect the pawn on a3, which is technically a good move. But when they do that, the knight is going to be on the back rank, very passive. This is not how you want your pieces to be in chess. Generally, you want your knights to be as close to the center as possible. Your pieces want to be controlling as many squares as possible. And what did I play? Just a simple move, knight to b6, trying to get my knight onto the c4 square from where it can attack the pawn on a3 and potentially control some squares over here. And my opponent played rook c1. So, it's a very okay move, I guess, trying to look onto this c pawn. But what did I do? I actually pushed the pawn. Obviously, they cannot take the pawn right now because I have 2 pieces protecting it, but it's actually still a mistake. I myself don't even know why it's a mistake, but let's just see what it is. Okay, queen e1. I guess the idea of this is to bring the queen to c3, but I am not exactly sure. Let's just check with the engine. Knight to a4 is the best move. Very, very weird. I would not have played like this at all. I would have probably played something like this. The engine says it's inaccurate, but there's no way someone would see king h2 and queen e1 too. So c4, they didn't see the follow-up. c4 might have been a mistake, but if they don't see the follow-up, is it really a mistake? In my opinion, I don't think so, but they actually blundered something here. They try to attack the center and try to open its things up, but that just allows me to capture the pawn on d5. Not only that, now my knight is even better on this square because from here it's controlling many squares, attacking the f4 pawn too, which attacks the queen. Their position basically falls apart immediately since this central control was the entire reason their position was held together. If that is removed, their counterplay is removed, so I don't have anything to worry about. Meanwhile, I'm just probably going to find a way to push this pawn. So they took on d6, perfectly fine move, I just took back. And notice how there is no check on e5 with the queen. And even if there was a check and this pawn wasn't there, I would be able to save my knight by dropping back to f6. Queen to d2, fine move, attacking my knight and also protecting the f4 pawn. But now queen to b2. Now you might see it says it's inaccurate, but this is actually a very good move here. And let me tell you why. So you are basically forcing a queen trade here. And after the queen is traded off, I will have a rook on the second rank. And not to mention, they cannot take the c4 pawn because the knight will be hanging with check. So they cannot take this pawn. After I, for example, move my knight and protect this pawn, I will have two connected passed pawns, which are just unstoppable with two pieces here. And if they try to move their queen somewhere, let's say like this, so I can just take this pawn on f4. The last thing I needed to worry about is, what if they take the knight? Well, in that case, that just drops the rook and drops the knight. Oh yeah, actually, you should even take like this with check and then take this knight on b1. So they absolutely cannot take the knight on d5. They had to take the queen and I took back. And look at this rook now. Completely dominant position for me here. They play g3 here, perfectly fine move, but now I play knight to e3 here, getting my knight even deeper into white's position here, controlling a lot of squares and also making sure that this c4 pawn is defended. Now I'm just going to push this d pawn and there's nothing white can do to stop this. And we have knight to c3 here, perfectly fine move, trying to blockade my pawn and making sure the rook is a little bit more active here. But now just d5, protecting this pawn. This pawn is just going to roll up the board together with the c pawn, and from here it's just going to get very difficult to stop. Also, with d4, I'm attacking the knight, so they don't have time to push this pawn. And let's say they choose to lose their knight, and then for instance go here, well then I'm just going to be able to push and I'm only one square away. a6 here, I will be able to promote with check. There's a checkmate in 6, I'm able to stop this pawn. It's just resignable at this point, so they don't have time to push this a pawn, and after d4 they have to move the knight somewhere. And also what you have noticed, look at my time usage. I have 3 minutes left and my opponent has 5 minutes left, but I am in a completely winning position and I've already calculated everything I needed to know. Really, I've spent my time very nicely here, and I took my time trying to calculate as much as possible and make sure I don't miss anything. And my opponent just spent 4 minutes on knight to d1. I think they probably know that either one of these pawns is going to promote, and they were just trying to make sure that they didn't miss anything. Of course, there's nothing major here that you can miss. The rook takes back, and what I calculated was c3, rook takes d4, my pawn is going to be able to promote here, and there's nothing white can do to stop this. Rook d2 fails to just promotion, and rook c4 fails due to rook b1 check and then promoting the pawn. And then after takes, I'm going to swing my rook over here and take this pawn, and then I'm just up a rook. Very clean conversion. I don't have to worry about anything. There's nothing white can do anyway. And after I played c3, my opponent resigned or abandoned, whatever it was. Just like that, I have won against a 1900. If you managed to learn something or you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the subscribe button. It would help me out a lot. Other than that, that is it for the video.